Welcome to Bunny Trails, a whimsical adventure of idioms and other turns of phrase. I'm Shauna Harrison.
And I'm Dan Pugh. Each week, we take an idiom or other turn of phrase and try to tell the story from its entry into the English language to how it's used today. Have you ever heard of something and thought, wow, that's great? You might use phrases like cream of the crop or best of the best. But I think my all-time favorite expression is you're the bee's knees.
I love this one because, I don't know, it's cute.
It's cute, and it just feels kind of like innocent, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
But according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the bee's knees means, quote, the acme of excellence, end quote.
Okay.
And if you have only heard the word acme from the old Looney Tunes cartoons and assumed it meant defective or something because Wile E. Coyote's schemes were always thwarted using Acme brand products, you might be surprised to learn, as I was when I was like 16 or 17 and learned this, that the word acme actually means the top or the best. So the Coyote's plans were always thwarted by his own incompetence, not by poorly made products.
All right. That's just another example of irony in those cartoons.
That's exactly what it is. Yes, and that was the point. Was those cartoons were trying to make the case that he is being defeated by his own incompetence. He is using top of the line products, so it can't be that. Yes, but me not in the 80s, acme wasn't exactly a word that we used every day in that case. So adults got the joke. I did not as a kid in the 80s. So I was like, well, I don't know what's going on. This must be the worst. But it means the top. So the way we've used bee's knees today just means something is the best. But there are earlier variations and earlier meanings of these two words being used together. Before we look at those, I think that there is something we need to get out of the way right now, and it is the question that many of you have on your mind right now, and the moment you hear this phrase, it's the thing a lot of people think of. Do bees have knees? And according to entomologist Richard Jones, writing for the BBC Wildlife magazine, quote, like all insects, bees do have knees. Speaking anthropomorphically, the joint between the femur, thigh, and the tibia, shin, of an insect's leg is its knee. They don't, however, have kneecaps, end quote.
Good information. So good.
Yeah. So bees do have knees, so to speak. So with that, let's move forward. And one of the things we're going to talk about is the different ways that these two words have gone together. The first time that I could find something like this was with a different definition altogether. This one is focused on something as being insignificant. So, this is from 1797, and it comes to us from a letter by Mrs. Townley Ward, dated 27 June 1797, and while the letter itself wasn't published anywhere I could find, we do see the letter referenced in the work Notes and Queries, which was published 1896, and this is from volume 10. Here is what Notes and Queries had to say. Quote, a bee's knee. I find the phrase, as big as a bee's knee, in a letter from Mrs. Townley Ward to her sister, my grandmother, dated 27 June 1797. It cannot be as big as a bee's knee, end quote. So this is an example of only one knee, right? So they're saying the bee's knee rather than the phrase we hear now being bee's knees, and so this usage has I'll quote the Oxford English Dictionary, a type of something small or insignificant, end quote.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense because, bees are small, so their knees are even smaller.
Yeah.
It's just
exactly.
a logical conclusion.
Exactly, yeah. All right, let's look at another example. This one from My Confidences, an autobiographical sketch addressed to my descendants by Frederick Locker Lamson. In it, he relays something that happened to him in 1828, though the work it comes from was published in 1896. Quote, I remember that the nun pressed all sorts of parting gifts upon us, and when my father protested that we had no more room for any more, she said, offering some gift of slenderer dimensions, well, only this, it isn't so big as a bee's knee. I have never heard the simile before, nor have I since, end quote.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So interestingly, I'm going to go back to Notes and Queries, Volume 10. This was dated 1896, and this is the one that I used as that first attestation of a different phrase using be and ni, which is just a singular, right? So in this, the use of bees knee in Locker Lamson's work is referenced here in a short piece by G.L. Apperson. Quote, on this, Mr. Locker Lamson comments that he had never heard the simile before, nor had he since. I do not know whether the bee's knee is familiar to other people, but I have known it and used the simile ever since I was a small child. End quote. So that's
Okay.
interesting. In this case,
Uh,
the one person, Frederick Locker Lamson, was saying that that was the first time he'd heard it and he'd never heard it again. But G.L. Apperson, that he had heard it since he was a kid.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was really that was interesting. Here's one more for you, just to help you understand the reach of the phrase. This one comes from the North Wales Chronicle out of Australia, dated September 21st, 1841. And it follows the court case of an alleged dog snatcher. Quote, Commissioner, then you had no prepared bullock's liver in your pockets to attract people's dogs and enable you to steal them? Plaintiff, not a bit as big as a bee's knee, on the word of a gentleman. End quote. So
Wow.
there you are. That's several versions or several uses of this in the late 1700s and through the mid 1800s of the bee's knee, which is a separate phrase from what we use today, the bee's knees, and specifically was just talking about something small or insignificant. Now, there's one more usage I want to address before we move to the version most of us are aware of. It appears the phrase in the late 1800s and into the early 1900s was used to mean something that just didn't exist. I found an example in the newspaper from the Portland Sunday Telegram of Portland, Maine, using the bee's knees to talk about a dinner of foreign food, which seemed to baffle the author. I'll include a snippet of the sentence to avoid the racist undertones. Quote, following a lunch of birds' nests, bees' knees, thrush ankles, hummingbird sauté, and other delicacies, end quote. So
Okay.
he was talking about things that didn't even exist, but just as a stand-in for whatever was being served. And we continue to see that still similar usage of things not existing. Here's one from the Fall River Daily Globe out of Fall River, Massachusetts, and this is dated September 5th, 1901. Quote, a large plate glass window in Holden and Hindle's store was broken about 11:15 o'clock last night. George Borden of Westport, vendor of watercress, bees' knees, clams' ankles, etc., did the trick, but he claims it was purely accidental. End quote.
Okay.
I love this because they're basically like this scrupulous bastard, this guy who's just not a very good person, but yeah, vendor of watercress, bees' knees, and clams' ankles.
And clams ankles.
Oh
That's
man.
awesome.
Here is another example. This is from the Sunday Oregonian out of Portland, Oregon, and this is dated September 7th, 1902. Quote, of course, there are some discomforts and inconveniences to put up with when one camps so far from civilization. If you stay long, canned foods become an abomination. Milk and eggs are as unattainable as the proverbial bee's knees and canary bird's tongues. End quote.
Okay. Canary birds' tongues.
Yeah. Bee's knees and canary bird's tongues. Yeah.
Can't find either one.
All right, here's one more of these, and then we'll move on to the phrase as we know it now. This one is from the Mount Carmel item out of Pennsylvania, dated June 28th, 1907. This is from a running joke, a sort of viral social media post that people pile into, but is done in the newspapers instead of on social media like we might expect it today. Quote, to prevent appendicitis, walk on all fours a half hour every day, says a French newspaper. Let's all get into the game. Here's our offering. To avoid corns on your feet, walk first on one ear and then the other. Toledo Blade.
Oh.
Here's ours. To escape indigestion, eat fried bee's knees and stewed mosquito tongues and drink dishwater. Wellsboro Advocate. Here's ours. To cure consumption, take 1/2 an ounce of arsenic 3 times a day. Bloomsburg Daily. And hours to prevent running sores, tie 'em fast. End quote.
Jeez.
That has like mad, is your refrigerator running? Then you better go catch it vibes.
All right.
Yeah, so 1907. So there you are, just a thing someone posts and then somebody else has a funny retort to, and then it
So
becomes
they just start
a
listing
thing.
the whole
Yep.
like the whole list of all the jokes that all of them have
Yep,
told. Yeah.
exactly. And that
So
last one, of course, was from the Mount Carmel item on theirs. So anyway, yeah, that's it's very interesting to see those used. But those are both ways that bee's knees have been used. So that first one was bee's knee singular, that was talking about something that was small or insignificant, and it has pretty much fallen out of favor. It really kind of fell out of favor in the mid 1800s, and we just don't see that phrase used anymore. The next one was the bee's knees being used as something intangible or doesn't exist. And I even saw some folks comment on the phrase also being used as an example of something that doesn't exist in a form of jokes or pranks on someone, like sending someone to the hardware store to get striped paint,
yeah.
or sending someone to go buy a sky hook or a water hammer or something like that.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
might send an intern or apprentice or a new person that you're trying to haze to go pick up bee's knees, a pound of bee's knees or something. Yes. So anyway, yeah, that is the second way that we've seen it. And the interesting thing is that none of these phrases appear to be connected in any way.
That's just
So
just
they
random.
were both used, but they don't seem to be connected to the way it's used now. Bee's knees is just a rhymey, fun to say thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, but interesting. All right, well, with that, it's going to be time to move to our more modern uses, and this time we're going to define that as starting in the 1920s.
Okay.
But first, we need to say thank you to our sponsors.
This episode is sponsored by our amazing patrons on Patreon. And the cool thing about Patreon is it is 100% free to join the community. We have new things every weekday on the feeds. On Mondays, we have a conversation about what movies, shows, books, podcasts, and whatever else everyone is enjoying. Tuesdays see early access to the week's podcast. Wednesdays have all the links, books, songs, and other content mentioned in the week's episode. Thursday has patrons-only polls, and Fridays are our lightly edited behind-the-scenes video featuring all the cut content, goofs, and bonus facts you could imagine.
We've got some other pretty cool stuff too, like original digital artwork once a month made by Shauna, and direct access to talk with us. No algorithms getting in the way of what we see or don't see. Plus, you can get awesome name recognition like Pat Rowe does every episode. And our top spot is currently occupied by the amazing Mary Halsig Lopez. You can join the Bunny Trails community for free at Bunny Trails Pod on Patreon.
That's patreon.com/bunnytrailspod.
All right, I will kick off by noting that we are going to start much earlier than we usually do in the second half. But just because of the interesting history the word bees and knees have when put together, even though there doesn't appear to be much, if any, connection between the three ways it's been used. But now let's jump into the phrase as we know it today. The use of bees' knees, meaning something excellent or great, seems to have taken off in the roaring 1920s, alongside flapper culture and a period of excesses during the party-tinged high life among America's well-to-do prior to the Great Depression. It is almost impossible to pin down when this phrase actually started, so I'll just jump in with some of the early uses from the 1920s. This first one comes from the Sporting News, billed as the baseball paper of the world. It was published in St. Louis, Missouri, and dated January 13th, 1921. And they are talking to the very famous, at this point, baseball player Babe Ruth. Quote, "How are the diamonds in Cuba?" asked one of the reporters. "Cheap as dirt," said Babe. "I had my eyes on a big sparkler that looked like the bee's knees flashing on my tie, but no, I mean the kind of diamonds you knock the ball out of," explained the reporter. "Oh, they're bunk," said Babe. "The fence is 4 blocks from home plate, and they expect you to knock it over every time." End quote. Oh, man.
They're bunk.
They're bunk.
I didn't realize that was something people said that long ago either.
Yeah. Well, in those days, as I mentioned, Babe Ruth was a big deal. So it is quite possible that him using the phrase could have helped jumpstart it into the average lexicon. I am by no means trying to claim that he coined this phrase or anything,
Right.
but yeah, definitely him talking about that diamond as the telling them the bee's knees, saying they were the bee's knees.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that is definitely something that a lot of people would have picked up on in the newspapers. But anywho, there's no evidence to suggest he started it, but I definitely think that couldn't
He
have
could
hurt
have,
its
yeah,
popularity
yeah.
with a big celebrity of the day like that. This one is from a 1922 advertisement for a variety show. Quote, zoologically speaking, you'll say Emil Hoffman's new orchestra is the elephant's adenoids, the homey surroundings, the cat's whiskers, the attentive service, the snake's hips, and you'll find the fun, foolishment, and frivol to be the bee's knees. They're always here. In other words, the gaiety opens Saturday night, August 26th. End quote.
My goodness.
I loved that phrase, that the elephant's
The
adenoids.
elephant's
Yeah,
adenoids?
I'd never heard that
What?
before. I've heard of the cat's whiskers, right, or the cat's pajamas. Just kind of a silly, nonsensical type thing like the bee's knees is. But the elephant's adenoids I'd never heard before, and that was just really good. The snake's hips are also very good.
Mm. I've heard that one like maybe a couple of times or something, but never somebody actually trying to use it. Just that, saying that it is a phrase,
Right.
like the snake's hips. It's funny.
Well, there's even a song called Bee's Knees, and it is billed as a foxtrot, a type of dance. So it was made for people to do that dance alongside. It was written by Ted Lewis in 1922. Like I said, at the foxtrot, it's a kind of dance, but it has long, continuous movements across the dance floor. So there is that. Another example of the bee's knees in the early 1920s. I do want to mention this because there are a lot of places on the internet that try and make this claim where it's suggested that a potential origin story, and I'm going to actually turn to Gary Martin of the Phrase Finder website, phrases.org.uk, to debunk this one. Quote, one tenuous connection between the bee's knees and an actual bee relates to Bee Jackson. Mrs. Jackson was a dancer in the 1920s New York and popularized the Charleston, being credited by some as introducing the dance to Broadway in 1924. She went on to become the world champion Charleston dancer and was quite celebrated at the time. It's not beyond the bounds of possibility that the expression became popular in reference to her and her very active knees, but 1924 postdates the origin of the phrase, end quote. Which is quite clear. There's no chance that is the origin of it because, we clearly see Babe Ruth using it in 1921. So,
Right.
yeah, she wasn't even the first celebrity to be using it. But there is every reason to believe that there could be some popularity that was enjoyed because of being tied in with Bee Jackson and her very active knees, so to speak.
Right.
And, and the Charleston is a dance that uses the knees quite a bit. And in fact, we're going to talk more about the Charleston, both the song and the dance, in our behind the scenes video, which airs every Friday on Patreon. That is patreon.com/bunnytrailspod. Okay, now we are there. It is time to jump to some examples that we might all remember. So we're going to kick off with Knees of My Bees, which is a song by Alanis Morissette from her 2004 album So-Called Chaos. Here are some of the lyrics. Quote, you are a gift promised, sent with a wink, with tendencies for conversations that raise bars. You are a sage who is fueled by compassion, comes to nook and crannies, is bound for all stars. You make the knees of my bees weak, tremble and buckle. You make the knees of my bees weak. End quote.
Yeah. Good old Alanis Morissette.
She just has such a unique style that I just love her music.
Same.
The Bee's Knees is a children's book by Steve Coleman and Phoebe Wright. It was published in 2012. Here's the synopsis from the publisher. Quote, the Bee's Knees is one of the many nonsense rhymes popular with the socialites of the Roaring Twenties that has stood the test of time and still used in common language today. This version is a 21st century variation with a twist. Really, though, the Bee's Knees means just right, terrific, the ant's pants, if you please. That cheeky bee is such a tease, end quote.
Okay.
Alrighty. I still have no idea what this book is about based on that, but
Yeah, I don't know.
okie dokie. I'm sure for kids, it probably sounded really cool. There's a lot of rhyming stuff. The Ants Pants, that's pretty good. The Bee's Knees is a 2019 song by Juice WRLD. Here are some of the lyrics, and frankly, the only snippet I can find that won't earn us an explicit tag. Quote, phone line going AWOL. I'm the plug now. They act like my music is the new drug in town. The bee's knees, I am. The bee's knees. End quote.
Okay.
Yep, that's literally it. I couldn't say the line before or the line. I couldn't even finish the last line, which actually, yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, I think that's really interesting though that we find it here in Juice WRLD song too. Like it's got the whole song called it. So, I really enjoy seeing phrases that I like, as much as this one just show up in a variety of different cultural touch points. Yeah. The Bee's Knees is a children's book by Sam Tracy Tyson and Dana Sullivan Tyson. It was released in 2020. Here is the synopsis from the publisher. Quote, Eloise is a busy bee with a problem. She has knobby knees that prevent her from doing all the same things the other bees do. Will she find her special gift and realize that being different doesn't mean that she is unable to be an important member of her hive? End quote.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so I at least
different.
being I tried to give it in my voice, at least I know after this synopsis I know what the book's about, right?
Right.
I do think it's interesting though because bees have 6 legs, right? And I'm pretty sure they have like 5 or 6 components to each of those legs, and only one of them would be a knee, but there's going to be articulating joints in all of them, and it seems like the bee's knee actually it facilitates basically for flying bees that don't hive in the ground. It pretty much only facilitates pollen moval, up and down the legs. So I don't know specifically where the problem is with these bees' knees, but I'm sure Eloise probably can have some lessons to share, even if it wouldn't be entomologically accurate.
Right. I'm sure in this tale, like maybe they walk on their legs and stuff, like a lot. They're just like walking around.
Yeah, they probably only have, I bet they don't even have all of the legs. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. I wonder. I'm going to look at the image now and see. She does absolutely have 6 legs. Okay. Eloise does, yes, and they are knobby. In fact, there's 3 joints in each, or there's 2 joints, 3 bones in each arm, leg. She has 4 legs and 2 arms.
Oh, okay.
Is how she is being shown. So, and definitely, her 2 elbows and her 2 knees are all very knobby on each section.
Okay, well, there you go. I mean,
the more I look at that, actually, the more horrified I am of it, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. The Bee's Knees is a short film written and directed by Crew Simpson. The director's statement is, quote, I want to be able to seamlessly work abstract and experimental passages into stories that deal with intense human experience, end quote. The synopsis is a grandpa with dementia tells a love story to his wildly imaginative grandchild. And we're going to link to the short film on YouTube where you can watch it in its entirety. It's less than 10 minutes, and it is very sweet.
Okay, I was like, that sounds like it's going to make me cry.
It will, probably,
okay,
yeah. Knowing you for as long as I have, yes. Yeah, it will. It will, for sure. All right, last one, and this one is one of my favorite memes. I first saw it before COVID, so I don't really remember when. I don't know when it started circulating, but it does feature a cute little bee who is kind of like sitting on a windowsill, and he is staring out the window, maybe reflecting on his life. And the caption reads, quote, I don't know, man. It's just, what if my knees aren't that great? End quote. And I just love this image so much. It's such a good picture of this little bee, and he looks like maybe he's a little bit too bigly proportioned, so like maybe he's like a chubby baby or something.
Yeah.
And he does look like he's just kind of like staring right out that window.
Yeah, you can't tell if he's staring like at the rain outside, kind of that
right, because it's kind of raining outside. Yeah, it's a contemplative
type. You can also
type.
see his reflection a little bit in the glass, so maybe he's looking at himself. Like it's hard to tell which one it is.
It's so good. There's so much to
so
this.
Sweet.
It's such a great image. Yeah,
it's the cutest.
It is. Well, I really like this phrase. In a world of crass language, I really enjoy the innocence of this one. It just feels like a product of a bygone era, but one that seems to still have enjoyed enough staying power that we're still using it today, from children's books to rap music to contemplative documentaries. And I think that's really cool. I think the bee's knees is the bee's knees. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. If you have any thoughts on the shows or pop culture references that we should have included, then reach out to us on Patreon, patreon.com/bunnytrailspod, or comment on our website, bunnytrailspod.com.
All right, it is poll time. Recently, we asked our patrons if they enjoy eating breakfast for dinner, and the results were the only objectively correct answer. 100% for yes.
Exactly. Yes, that is the right answer.
Yeah. All breakfast foods are delicious. Typically, my actual breakfast is the caffeine variety, but the items that people make for breakfast are my favorite foods. So every time for dinner, I will say breakfast, sure.
That's fair. I also will probably do that.
Jan said, quote, bacon, sausage, eggs, hash browns, toast, and jelly, pancakes. French toast is good. Plenty of fried spam, end quote. That's a good list to Jan to start with. I love it. Emily followed up with, quote, waffles for dinner is a Sunday night tradition in my home, end quote.
JGP added, quote, at least once a month, we make a dinner of hash browns fried up with a bunch of vegetables like onion, green peppers, broccoli, and whatever else we have on hand. Add a little crumbled sausage and some cheddar cheese, and it is a great meal, end quote. All of those sound really good. I'm not a huge waffles fan, but I will still eat them. I just, it wouldn't be my first pick. I would always go pancakes over waffles, but I think, waffles have a place. And so I certainly can appreciate Emily's Sunday night tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then otherwise, everything everyone else has said is great. Although fried spam, while I am a big fan of spam, the food, and I used to eat it regularly. It does have a lot of sodium in it.
It does a bit.
But yeah, we always have cans of spam at the house. It's a great source of protein in the winter if you lose power and are stuck in your home for a week. And so it's great shelf stable food that doesn't require you to have refrigeration and be able to keep things at a particular temperature. I will, for my purposes, eat breakfast food at any meal: breakfast, lunch, dinner, second breakfast.
Just whenever.
Anything. The whatever that thing when you go to the fridge at like 10:30 at night and you're definitely long past dinner, but you're a little bit hungry. Like I'd have breakfast then too. I'd fry an egg. It's whatever. I don't mind.
Second dinner time snack after snack or something. I don't know what you call it.
I don't remember. It's unfortunate because there is a Taco Bell commercial that put a name to that, and I just don't remember what they called it now. But I'm sure that some of you listeners are screaming at your podcasting app right now, knowing what they called it. But anyway,
I know there's bedtime snack and midnight snack or something.
Midnight snack. That's a good word. I don't know why I didn't say that, but yeah, it's a really good point.
Late night munchies, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All right. Well, I'm a fan of eggs, hash browns, bacon, toast, sausage, bacon, orange juice. I'm good.
Those like egg casseroles that people make, those are really good. Quiche, crepes. I mean, just breakfast food. Sure,
absolutely.
Bring it on. Fruit. Also throw some fruit on the plate.
Yes, I'm okay with that. That is fine if that happens. I don't mind. Yeah. If it's fresh fruit, I'm all in.
Like, I'll allow it. Bananas? Come on.
No, I'm a huge banana fan, yeah. There's a diner in town, and whenever I go there, I get the chicken fry with eggs and toast, and it's all smothered in gravy, which then reminds me, biscuits and gravy, also amazing. Now I'm hungry, so let's wrap up the show.
Well, as a reminder, our silly polls mean absolutely nothing, and they are not scientifically valid. And patrons of all levels, including our free tiers, can take part. Head over to patreon.com/bunnytrailspod to take this week's poll. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week. Until then, remember,
words belong to their users. I think I'm going to go make some eggs.